2 years ago, I was at home alone, and I was sitting in my home office, crisscross applesauce on the floor. I had tears streaming down my face. I had my head in my hands. I was just crying. I had just finished 4 years of school and studying full-time, working full-time, and I found out I had failed the bar exam. And I was devastated. I was so depressed. I had so much mom guilt. I was angry. I was discouraged. I felt alone. I felt heartbroken. I was just so sad. And as I sat there and talked to God and cried, in front of me was a whiteboard. It went from the floor to the ceiling. And at the top was a verse I had written months earlier that said, "Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith." And I just looked at that verse, and I was like, man, this is a horrible race, God. This race that you have marked out for me. And he spoke to me in that moment. Our God is so loving. He loves us so much. He's just so gentle with us. And he said, "Jaime, you have been running a vigorous race. And your race is from point A to point B. And you have been running that race. And I wish you could see my race for you. It's so much bigger. There is so much more than this little race that you're focused on. I've got more ministry, more good times, more bad times, but a much longer race, and I want you to run it with me. But you're going to have to make some changes if you're going to run my race." And I know so many people in this room have gone back to school, you're working full time. And when you go through a season like that, you push a lot of things aside. You have to. But there's also healthy things you push aside, and I had done that as well. And so God started talking to me about some non-negotiables. And the first one was exercise. And if you know me, I love exercising. I'm an exercise person. I've always done sports. If you ask me what I want to do on my birthday, I'm like, I want to hike, I want to run, I want to do a workout class, I want to do it all on the same day. But because of the schedule that I had been doing for so many years, that was something that was a Jaime thing, and so I had pushed that completely aside. And I had no way to manage my stress or my anxiety that I was dealing with. And God said, "You need to put this back into your life for your emotional health." And at the time, I was really depressed. So a little bit of exercise really just got me to baseline. That's really just where it got me so that I could go throughout my day and function and work and do the things I needed to do. But the second non-negotiable that God brought up surprised me, but it was very clear, and it was a Sabbath. And a Sabbath is one of the 10 commandments that God gives us, and it says, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. But in the church, it's kind of strange. It's not really talked about that much. And a lot of people don't ever ask you about a Sabbath and whether you're taking one. And basically, it's just a day to rest. It's very countercultural. But for me, what that meant was a day where I didn't work, I didn't study, and I just spent time trying to connect with God and rest. And this was way harder than the exercise thing because I like exercising. So I was like, no, I'm not going to take a Sabbath. And when I really dug deep to why, God said, "Do you trust me?" And I don't think I did. I didn't think that taking a Sabbath was going to be in my best interest. And And so I had to really battle through that, but I decided to still do it. I know that some of you have been Christians a long time, and you know this, but when God asks you to do something, he's so good. He has your best interest in mind. And so I said yes, and I started taking a Sabbath. And every week before my Sabbath would come along, I'd get anxious, and I'd be like, oh, I have to take a day off. And it was stressful, but I still did it. And now, 2 years later, I feel like I've graduated from AA, because I'm like, I have taken a Sabbath for 2 years, and it feels so good. And I tell you this because I really think these non-negotiables were foundational for my emotional health. So if I hadn't put these things into practice, it wouldn't have mattered if I did every single emotional health recommendation in the world. I wouldn't have had the foundation I needed to be healthy. So I brought those up just because with so many moms in the room, I just thought there's probably a few people in here who have pushed some of those non-negotiables aside, and you may need to feel that little nudge today to push those back into your schedule. So when we're talking about emotional health, there's only 2 guiding principles that I wanted to share with you today. The first was a soft heart. And the soft heart sounds easy. Both of my points sound really easy. They're not. Okay, but this comes from Ezekiel 36, 25 through 26. It says, I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean. I will cleanse you from all your impurities and from all your idols. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. So there's 2 types of people I think this is going to resonate with today. And the first is you just don't know Jesus. You've never met him. You've never accepted him into your life. Maybe you've heard of God, but you've never said, yes, I want to make Jesus Lord of my life. And this is your day. And as we read through this verse, I want you to pay attention to who does the heavy lifting. God says he sprinkles clean water on you, and you'll be clean. God says he will cleanse you from all your impurities, from all your idols. God says he'll give you that new heart, that he'll put a new spirit inside you, and he'll remove your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. The only thing you have to do is say yes and accept it. The second hard heart that may be in this room, I resonate with. I was a Christian. I believed in Jesus. I wanted to serve him with my life, but I had a hard heart, and I didn't know it. And you know, as human beings, we're incredible how the things that we can walk through, the trauma we can endure, the things we can see. Human beings go through devastating situations and carry on with their lives. And it's amazing. And I really think God gives us incredible defense mechanisms so that we can do that. But over time, walls start getting built up in your heart, and so no one can really hurt you anymore, but it's very difficult to feel anything anymore. And this was what the situation I found myself in, just going through a lot of hurt and trauma over years and just having that hard heart. And the way I was able to recognize this was I heard a speaker talking, and they said, has it been 10 years since you've cried? Have you never cried? Do you have a hard time feeling God? Do you have a hard time getting hurt? And those were symptoms, perhaps, of a hard heart. And so I remember sitting there and thinking, because I felt like I was doing pretty good. I was like, that sounds a little bit like me. And part of my hard heart was pride, because I didn't want anyone to know that I wasn't okay or that I had gone through things. I just wanted to be like everyone else. And so for me, part of, I think, getting that exchange, that heart of flesh back was actually having someone pray with me and say, you know what, I'm not okay, and I need God to give me that soft heart again. And it was almost instantaneous that God broke those walls down and gave me that fleshy heart. And now when I come to church and I listen to worship music and I hear a message, I can feel God. And it is so amazing. It's so much easier to have a relationship with God when you can feel him. It's so much easier to have a relationship with your spouse when you have emotion. So I brought this up because defense mechanisms, they serve us really well during a season. They serve you so well, but then there's a time that comes and those are no longer serving you. And so today, that may be your takeaway. You just need that soft heart again. Those defense mechanisms that served you really well are no longer serving you, and you just need someone to pray for you. And I would be honored to pray for you. I know Kevin would as well. We have a prayer team here, but we would be honored to pray for you today for that soft heart. My last principle I wanted to share with you also sounds too easy, and it's call out to the Lord. Easy, call out to the Lord. You'll be emotionally healthy. But it's actually very challenging. I want to read Psalms 18 to you. I won't read the whole thing, but this is the Psalms that I read at night when I can't sleep. When I'm feeling anxious or overwhelmed, this is the Psalms that I open up and read. It says, "The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God is my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I called to the Lord, and I was saved from my enemies. The cords of death entangled me. The torrents of destruction overwhelmed me. The cords of the grave coiled around me. The snares of death confronted me. In my distress, I called to the Lord. I cried to my God for help. He heard my voice. My cry came before him into his ears." So amazing to me that the God of the universe hears our prayers, that we can talk to him and he hears us. Listen to the imagery in verse 16. It says, "He reached down from on high and took hold of me. He drew me out of deep waters. He rescued me from my powerful enemy, from my foes who were too strong for me. He brought me out into a spacious place. He rescued me because he delighted in me." I love that David cried out to God, and the Lord delighted in him. It wasn't shameful. It wasn't like, oh, you should be able to do this on your own, David. He said he called out to him, and then he delighted in him for calling out to him. I was given a Bible study on making the Lord your refuge from a friend. And one of the activities that Bible study had us do was write down the things that are not our refuge. And so I went through and I made this list. And the goal was to kind of identify things that you could be going to instead of God, which are idols. It's like that's our other verse we talked about. And so I wrote down, a clean house is not my refuge, right? It's like, just a clean house. I wrote down, all of my work completed is not my refuge. I wrote down, a full bank account is not my refuge. And I think at the time, like our car was broken, so I wrote down like a fixed car is not my refuge. You know, like the things that you're just like, if this was just done, I would be at peace. And so I want you to think about the things in your life that potentially you are putting in that place of your refuge instead of God. And I'm going to tell you a little example from my own life. A couple of weeks ago, I was in my kitchen, and normal day, nothing has happened. It's just a normal day in the Cumming house. But all of a sudden, I get that intense feeling of anxiety, and I'm like, the kitchen needs to be deep cleaned. Like, there's an intensity about this cleaning that needs to happen, and it needs to happen now. And I feel it's like you guys, the ones who are laughing, those are my people. Like, you're like, yep, that's my refuge. Like, and so in that moment, and I truly believe this was because I've been taking a Sabbath, because my parents are here. I am the child who would clean their room when I was having a hard day. So this has been like my pattern of dealing with stress for a very long time. And in that moment, the Holy Spirit was like, Jaime, ding, ding, ding. And so I stopped, and I walked upstairs to my room, and I sat down on the floor next to my bed, and I just started crying and praying. And I was like, God, because I felt that shame, it's like, here we are again, you're going to something besides God. And I was so frustrated because I want to follow Jesus and I want to do it his way. But then once again, I'd feel that urge to, start doing something and going to something besides him. And I just stopped and I prayed and asked him to help me. I said, God, I need your help. I don't know why I'm going to this. I don't know why I think that this intense cleaning of my kitchen is going to make my life better. And he met me there. He met me there. And it's like, he showed me, like, hey, you're feeling like things are out of control right now. They're not. It's fine. Life's going to go on. And I was able to move on. And, my family, I think, really benefited from it because they didn't have, like, intense mom, going nuts in the kitchen. So, because as women, we really do have the power to change the environment in our home. And so in that moment, I was just so grateful that God met me and was just reminded to take those things to him.